He said 6 people were at the home when it was searched, including a music producer and a property manager. Diddy's lawyers argue evidence in the...
A frantic knock at the door, a loaded gun, and a chilling threat. "We're going to kill this nunna." This wasn't a movie script. It was a real night in Hollywood. A night that nearly turned deadly. And at the center of it all, Diddy, Kid Cudi, and a secret relationship that would spiral into violence, blackmail, and fear. What really happened behind the scenes? And how far did Diddy go to keep control? Cassie was more than just Diddy's protege. For years, she was seen as his carefully guarded partner, someone he kept close both professionally and personally. But behind the scenes, things were unraveling. According to former employee Capricorn Clark, Cassie was quietly seeing someone else, and not just anyone. It was Kid Cudi, the chart-topping artist known for doing things his own way. Their connection wasn't public, but it was real enough that Cassie started staying at Clark's LA apartment just to keep things discreet. Clark recalled a moment that now feels like the beginning of the storm. Cassie had texted her about Cudi, casually, nothing alarming. But Clark's reaction was immediate. "Delete it. Right now." Why? Because Diddy paid for both of their phones. That meant he could see everything. Messages, calls, even locations. That text, as harmless as it might have seemed, could get them caught. Cassie took it seriously. So seriously, in fact, that Clark helped her get a burner phone, a secret device for secret conversations. At that point, they weren't just hiding a relationship, they were preparing for what might happen if Diddy ever found out. It was just after midnight on December 22, 2011, a quiet morning in Los Angeles. Capricorn Clark was asleep in her apartment when she was jolted awake by a violent pounding at her front door. It wasn't a knock. It was relentless, like someone trying to break in. When she opened the door, her heart stopped. Standing there was Diddy, and he wasn't alone. In his hand, she says, was a gun. His face wasn't angry. It was cold, focused, controlled fury. And the first thing out of his mouth wasn't, "Hello," it was a question. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Who is Scott?" Clark froze. She knew exactly who he meant. Scott Mescudi, Kid Cudi's real name. But she didn't say that. She told him the truth, or at least part of it. "I don't know anyone named Scott." Diddy didn't believe her. What he said next sent chills down her spine. "We're going to kill this and right." That wasn't a threat. That was a decision. According to Clark, this wasn't some drunken outburst. Diddy was armed, determined, and already in motion. He wasn't yelling. He was acting. Within minutes, she says, he had her inside a black Cadillac Escalade, along with one of his longtime bodyguards, Ruben. Diddy climbed into the back seat with Clark, resting the gun on his lap like it belonged there. He didn't need to explain what was happening. Clark already knew. They were heading to Kid Cudi's house, and no one had any idea how far Diddy was willing to go. What started as a secret text had now become something far more terrifying. A manhunt. The city was asleep, but inside that black Escalade, everything was tense, quiet, and dangerous. Capricorn Clark sat beside one of the most powerful men in the music industry, with a gun resting on his lap and fury burning behind his silence. No one spoke much. They didn't need to. Clark knew exactly where they were headed. Kid Cudi's house in the Hollywood Hills. A 15 to 20-minute drive, but each mile felt heavier than the last. She kept glancing at the weapon, hoping this was just a scare tactic. But Diddy wasn't bluffing. His mood didn't swing wildly. It stayed locked in, like someone playing out a plan they'd already made in their head. Clark wasn't just a passenger. She was a witness, and she knew that could be dangerous too. Ruben, the bodyguard, said nothing as he drove. It wasn't the first time he'd been in a car with Diddy during one of his outbursts. But this time was different. There was a name, a location, a target. As they weaved through the quiet streets of the Hollywood Hills, Clark's mind was racing. She didn't know what Diddy would do once they got there, if he was going to confront Cudi, threaten him, or worse. But she knew she had to act fast. Secretly, she pulled out Cassie's burner phone, the one they'd gotten just to stay hidden, and made a desperate call. She didn't say much, just enough to get Cassie to pick up. She was trying to warn her, maybe loop her in before something happened that couldn't be undone. But it didn't matter. Because Diddy, she says, noticed. And in an instant, he grabbed the phone from her hand. He scrolled. He hit redial. And the last person Clark had spoken to was Kid Cudi. Now, Diddy wasn't just heading toward Cudi's house. He had confirmation. It was him. He was there. And Diddy was about to show up on his doorstep, armed and furious. When they pulled up outside Kid Cudi's house, the night air was still. The kind of silence that hangs before something erupts. Capricorn Clark stayed in the SUV, heart pounding, while Diddy and his bodyguard stepped out. He still had the gun. They walked straight up to the house, no hesitation, no attempt to hide. According to Clark, this wasn't a warning visit. This was personal. She couldn't see everything from the car, but she knew something serious was going down inside. The longer they were in there, the worse it felt. She called Cassie again. This time, not just to warn her, but to prepare her. Something was happening that couldn't be undone. They both knew Diddy wasn't just mad. He was dangerous. And Cassie was at the center of it. Minutes later, another car pulled up. It was Cudi. Right then, everything shifted. Diddy saw him, the man he believed had been sleeping with Cassie, the man he thought had humiliated him. Clark says Diddy recognized him immediately, and just like that, the mission was over. They didn't stay to talk. No confrontation, no shouting match. As police lights started flashing in the distance, Diddy got back into the SUV and told them to drive off. But the danger hadn't passed. It was just beginning. On the way out, Clark says Diddy turned to her with one final order: convince Cudi not to go to the police. This wasn't just about rage anymore, and it was about cleanup, damage control, making sure that what happened tonight never made it past the driveway. Because if Cudi talked, everything would unravel. After leaving Cudi's house, things only spiraled further out of control. Capricorn Clark wasn't just a bystander anymore. She became a part of the chaos, caught between Diddy's fury and the people trying to stay safe. Clark says she had to pick up Cassie right after the visit. Cassie was terrified, not just because of what had happened, but because of what came next. They went back to Cudi's place again, this time with a desperate mission: stop him from filing a police report. Diddy's warning was clear. Clark delivered the message herself. If you tell on him, he'll hurt us all. That was more than a threat. It was a promise of violence and retaliation. Everyone involved knew just how far Diddy's reach went, and how dangerous it was to cross him. But the nightmare didn't end there. Back at Diddy's house, the violence turned inward. Clark testified that Diddy kicked Cassie repeatedly, driving her out to the street while she curled up, trying to protect herself. Clark even called one of Diddy's bodyguards, begging for help. The response? She was told to leave. No one was coming to stop the attack. In desperation, Clark reached out to Cassie's mother, Regina Ventura. She told her what was happening, that Cassie was being assaulted and no one could call the police. Regina had to do it herself. As if this wasn't enough, Cassie was being blackmailed. Clark testified about an email from Cassie saying Diddy threatened to release sex tapes. And both Cassie and Cudi were reportedly threatened with harm if they spoke out. Clark's own life was at risk. She revealed that Diddy had threatened her about 50 times, a shadow hanging over her every move. Eventually, she was fired, stripped of her health insurance, retirement, and even her car, all because she failed to properly ask for vacation time. What began as a secret relationship had exploded into a nightmare of violence, threats, and fear. And the story was far from over. What started as hushed rumors and secret threats exploded into one of the most high-profile federal cases in the music industry's recent history. Diddy, the rap mogul once seen as untouchable, found himself facing serious charges: racketeering and sex trafficking. And right at the center of it all was Capricorn Clark, a former employee who stepped forward to reveal the darkness lurking behind the glitz and glamour. Clark's testimony was like opening a door few expected to see. She didn't just recount that terrifying night with Kid Cudi. She painted a picture of an environment fueled by fear and control, where intimidation wasn't the exception. It was the rule. According to her, Diddy's fury wasn't just explosive, it was methodical. Every threat, every act of violence was designed to silence anyone who dared cross him. She described how Diddy used his power to keep people in line, from the employees who worked for him to the women caught in his orbit. The courtroom heard about dozens of threats Clark endured, sometimes as many as 50, all aimed at keeping her quiet. But despite losing her job, and with it her health insurance, retirement benefits, and even her car, Clark refused to back down. She became a rare voice willing to expose what many wanted to stay hidden. One of the most disturbing parts of her testimony involved the use of private, intimate videos as weapons. Clark recounted how Diddy allegedly threatened to release sex tapes of Cassie, his former partner, using those tapes as a way to intimidate both Cassie and Kid Cudi into silence. It was a chilling reminder of how deeply power and manipulation were intertwined in this saga. Beyond the personal threats, the case revealed how far-reaching the fallout was. Arson investigators had even contacted Clark after Cudi gave them her number, showing the complex web of connections and investigations tied to the trial. This wasn't just a story confined to the music industry. It spilled over into law enforcement and the courts, touching lives in unexpected ways. Most striking of all was the raw fear Clark conveyed, the reality of living under a man who didn't hesitate to make good on his threats. It was a world where loyalty was demanded, silence was bought with fear, and crossing the wrong person could have devastating consequences. This trial wasn't just about a few isolated incidents. It exposed a culture of control, secrecy, and violence that had been carefully hidden behind Diddy's success. For the public, it was a shocking glimpse into how the glimmering world of fame can sometimes mask the darkest truths. This story is far from just headlines and courtroom drama. It's a stark reminder of the hidden costs of fame, power, and control. Behind the scenes of the music industry's brightest lights lie secrets some would kill to keep buried. Diddy's empire, once untouchable, now faces cracks so deep they threaten to tear it apart. The chilling testimony of Capricorn Clark has pulled back the curtain on a world where violence, threats, and fear weren't just rumors. They were everyday reality. And yet, questions still linger. How many more stories like this remain untold? How many lives have been shaped or shattered by silence and intimidation? As this trial unfolds, one thing is clear. The music industry's glimmering surface often masks darker truths, and those caught in the middle pay the highest price. What do you think about the power dynamics at play here? Could this case change the way the industry operates? Drop your thoughts below. This story is still unfolding, and your voice matters.